Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to replace toilet tank parts. Tools and supplies needed will be the toilet tank replacement kit, flathead screwdriver, large channel lock pliers, and an adjustable wrench. I'll have the links in the description. But first I want to tell you to be sure to get the correct replacement kit for your toilet. So be sure to check the brand toilet you have, because the one that I'm doing this install on is for an American Standard toilet. A Kohler toilet will have a different flushing mechanism, so be sure to check the correct one for your application. Without further ado, let's get this party started. I know, it's exciting, but hey, it's got to be done, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Alright, today we're going to replace the whole insides of the toilet tank. We replaced the flapper, and that did not solve the problem of where it leaking into the toilet bowl, and you can kind of see the water flow in the bowl. This is after it filled up. So this is what needs to happen, is the insides need to be replaced at the underneath the flapper, that whole gasket. Alright, so for the first step is you turn off the water to the fill valve and then flush the toilet to drain most of the water out of the tank, and just kind of scoop the water into the hole with the flap open. Try to get as much water out as possible, because you will be loosening these bolts as well as this connection here, so that way when you do lift it up, not so much water will be leaking out of the tank. Alright, so got the fill valve off for the toilet, and then underneath here you loosen up the fill valve to the tank connection and find a container that can collect water as soon as you do disconnect it. But there's going to be another turn screw that you go to loosen it up and unscrew from the tank itself. Okay, so the next step after removing the fill valve from the tank will be to loosen the two bolts that are holding the tank onto the toilet. That's usually a flathead screwdriver and a pair of pliers for the bolt and nut underneath the tank to loosen that up. This is what we're using to replace the internal parts of that toilet tank. It's made by Fluid Master. It's an all-in-one toilet repair kit. It includes all the fittings and everything. Toilet fill valve, new flapper. This runs about $20 in your nearest home center. Okay, after removing the bolts and the nuts from the underside of the tank, you just simply lift up on the tank and remove it from the base of the toilet. So this is what's going to be removed, this rubber gasket. Obviously the new bolts are going to be put in, and the whole internal parts are going to be replaced. So here's like a big nut right here that needs to be loosened up. Okay, so I'm using a big pair of channel locks to loosen up this nut from the toilet tank. Once you get it started, you can usually turn it by hand. Okay, so that nut is removed from the tank here. So once that's removed, then all the internal parts will be able to come out by simply pulling it out. Alright, before placing the tank back on, you want to make sure that this section right here is all cleaned right around the rim here, so that way it'll have a good connection and it will be properly sealed then. Alright, so this is the new component that's going to be installed. So this is going to be the rubber gasket that you remove from this. And this is what's going to be between the toilet tank and the toilet base itself. And so you remove this nut here because this is going to go on the underside of the tank. And then this gasket that's on here is going to stay on the inside. Alright, something to note here is when I was preparing these new bolts here, that as you can see, compared to the old ones, they're thinner. So we actually have to reuse the old bolts because they won't go through the holes in the toilet tank. So we have to reuse the old bolts. Alright, so I put the old bolts back in with the new washers into the tank. So now I'm going to put the new fill valve or the tube in here, feed it through the tank. And you want to make sure it's out of the way of the bolts so we can tighten the bolts when we put the tank back onto the bowl. And this part is going to be near the fill valve opening. So to tighten it, make sure you have that first gasket on to the tube here, and then you'll put the new nut on to the back to tighten it against the tank here. Alright, so we tighten this nut here, and you'll just kind of use the channel locks just to give it like a little extra turn, but you don't really want to over tighten it too much without, because it can actually cause it to break. So you want it just nice and snug. And also note, you do not need any plumber's putty. Now is the time to put on the tank gasket. Alright, the next step is to take the fill valve, and you'll need to check with your tank, and you'll make the adjustments here by pulling it and then you setting this locking ring here. But when you're setting it in the tank, it obviously cannot stick above the level of the tank here. So this is about the right level right here. So to prepare this, you'll want to use the rubber washer in this bag here, put it in first, and then you put it on in the tank. So you'll see that in the washer here, it's got this little flange, so you want that to be pointing down. If you find this video valuable, please give me a thumbs up. I appreciate it. And then pay attention to this section right here. This is where the tube is going to be going, connecting to the fill tube here. Okay, so once you get the rubber washer on, then you'll put it in the tank. And then you'll use this locking nut to attach it to the tank. Again, it's a hand tighten, but don't over tighten it. Alright, so now we're ready to put it onto the tank onto the bowl. Now don't forget to have put on that toilet tank gasket. It goes between the tank and the toilet bowl. You'll make sure the bolts are through the holes. And then you'll have the washers, the metal washers, ready to go, along with the nuts to go into the underside. Again, with me, I had to use the old bolts, so I'm going to use the old washers for it. So again, we're going to have the rubber washer and the metal washer. So the metal washer will be on the bottom. And then you'll have the nut. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe and hit that notification bell. At this point, it's better to just turn it by hand as far as you can go, and be sure to hold it inside the tank, pushing down. And then you can take the flathead screwdriver to tighten it inside the tank. Before tightening it too tight, be sure to get the other bolt secured. Alright, so after tightening up the bolts down there and then tightening up the fill valve, you'll take the fill tube that goes into the tube that makes the water go around inside the toilet bowl. There'll be a certain length that you only need. You cut off the excess. Then you attach it to the point right here on the fill valve. Then you attach it to the attachment that it came with to attach inside the tube here. And then for the flapper, you determine how much chain you need and attach it to the handle and test it, making sure that it doesn't go above the level of the tank to where it won't be able to raise. We were not able to use the replacement handle that it came with because this toilet actually takes a special handle that's at a different angle compared to the other handles that normally come with the tanks that are usually at this point instead of on the side. Alright, after everything's tightened down, got the fill tube in place, you have the fill valve connected, and remember, it is hand tightened. Now, go to turn on the fill valve slowly. The pipe might chatter. So now it'll fill up. You'll see the water going into the tube. That's what goes into the outer rim of the toilet. So once you fill it up, check underneath for any leaks underside the tank. Make sure there's no leaks on the floor. Alright, so once it's full, confirm that there's no leaks. And you can check by touching underneath the tank. Check for any water by the bolts you just put back in place. Do that on each side. And what I do recommend doing is what I call a paper towel trick. I'll put a piece of paper towel underneath the bolts where there's potential for leaking. I do this when also replacing faucets. Put it underneath here, and then give it like 20 minutes or so, go back and see if there's any drips on the paper towel. Alright, we did a few flush tests. We'll keep it underneath the paper towel underneath the toilet just to confirm that it's still dry. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more DIY projects, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit that notification bell. And as always, thanks for watching.